What's going on, everybody? I am Marc from Bergantino Audio Systems, and I'm here to discuss the new feature set of the new Bergantino Audio Systems Super Pre. I think you'll find as we dive into the video, you're going to get a nice idea of all of the features of what this little pupper can do. And I'm just here to show you exactly how to navigate from point A to point B. One of the big key feature sets of this is its scene savability. Now, not only are there 7 different banks to choose from, there's also 3 different memory slots in each bank. So it's 21 different presets that you can get in there. And it comes preloaded with specific EQ points, different drives and things like that, and different filters, compression, all of that great stuff. You can recall everything at the push of a button, whether you've got different basses that you're playing for different gigs, if you want different sounds, all of that I will dive into right now. So diving right in, the first thing you want to do is the quick start. If you're not really certain on how to do that after watching this video, you can always consult the manual. I believe it's on like page 4. So want to make sure that the unit is off. You plug it in. You power it on, and then boom, you're gonna see the Bergantino Audio, what current firmware is on there. It's gonna load, DI profile, profile none, phase none, blah, 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 blah. As soon as you see the next screen right here, you're gonna see the EQ points, the bass, low, mid, high, mid, treble, all at 0. I've got this thing completely wiped clean, and we're gonna build some tones together. So now that we got the unit turned on, let's navigate everything. The first thing that I like to do is turn the master volume and the gain down. Now the gain is gonna act as, how much input gain is going into the unit. So you'll notice that there is an OL indicator right here. OL stands for overload. And what I like to do is hit a hard note, turn it up, hit it again, and see how that little orange light came on right there. You don't want that constantly going off because you're going to get some unnatural clipping that you don't really want. So I dial it back. It's still coming off really strong. You just want a little bit of a tickle there, and that's totally fine. If it's flashing constantly, you got to turn it way down. And then from there, you want to turn the unit up a little bit with the master volume. I'm going to unmute the amplifier, and we have sound. Anyway, bad playing there. Sorry about that. So now that we got the gain all situated, let's dive in and see what each one of these buttons and knobs does. So first we've got the gain and master, as we already discussed. You've got your memory buttons here along with the mute switch. As soon as you engage the mute switch, that turns into a really great chromatic tuner. And you can set it for bass or guitar. In the deep menu settings, we'll get more to that later. If you'll notice where it says bank and then there's a little triangle pointing downwards. That way you can go down like down the script. In reverse alphabetical order for the banks. If you want to go back up, you push these 2 buttons together. Super simple. Then you've got multi-function buttons right here. You can push them in to select things. You can rotate the knobs and everything. You'll notice the graphics change on the OLED display. You've got your memory recall as well here, which is super convenient, especially when you're saving everything, and I'll show you how to save a scene. You've got your the bright switch as well. When you push this one in, you got program and mute, of course, if you want to push the mute button as well, in addition to it being down here. So then cycling through the menus is pretty simple. You push the program button right here. You push it. The first thing you're going to see is your bank and main scene, your filter screen, which is going to be the variable high pass filter, the variable low pass filter, and also the variable feedback filter, which is really, really convenient. I'll explain more why later. Then you've got your compression. You've got the variable ratio compressor, what type of compression, serial or parallel, the amount of compression and the amount of makeup gain. Then the next one, you're going to see the effects. We've got overdrive, we've got distortion, we've got fuzz, and all of those are super sculptable, which is very convenient. Then you push it again, you have the crossover frequency for your distortion, also the drive low pass filter, which you can move up and down, and then how much of that effect you want in there. If you can go from 0, which is completely clean, all the way to 100%, which is completely distorted. The drive is fully engaged there. Push it again, and you're back to your 4-band EQ. Now, let's start with saving a scene. The first thing that I want to do is actually create a main scene. Now, the main scene is going to be something that you toggle back and forth between. As soon as you push, any of these buttons, like you push it once to engage the scene, you push it again, it'll say main scene. I like to think of this as your clean slate, and I like to set it in a specific place that I know I can recall, and if I want to build something from absolute scratch, I've got a scene saved. As soon as you start changing settings and everything, that's gonna be your main scene. Wherever you left off last is gonna end up being your main scene. So it's good to have something, if you wanna build something from complete zero, complete scratch, the best thing to do is right out of the gate do that. And plus, for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna show you how to save a scene. So what you wanna do is you press the program button to where you get to this right here. It says Bank A, main scene. Then you'll notice here that it is there's a little cursor, which there's nothing there because there's nothing actually saved. You can use the memory 3 button to scroll back and forth. You've got 8 different alphanumeric characters to work with. And so I'm gonna go, and then in order to change those characters, you move the 4th knob here up and down. So I'm gonna go ahead and name this main really quickly. Pretty straightforward. Now you could put your main scene, you don't have to do this, but I just like to do this, especially when I want to start from scratch like we're doing today. And then the next thing you're going to do, press and hold program, you press and hold memory 1, and boom, Bank A, A1 loaded, main scene. Pretty straightforward. Now just remember, if you move some knobs and you get a specific sound that you like, just make sure you save that scene in the way that I just showed you. So the next screen we've got here is our variable high pass filter, variable low pass filter, and variable feedback filter. So what is a variable high pass filter? What's a variable low pass filter? Essentially think of a high pass filter as a low cut and think of the low pass filter as a high cut. Really sculpt and dial that sound in, especially once you get the EQ settings on the 4-band EQ really going and you find like, I want a little bit less low or I want a little bit more high without getting too much. This really helps you fine tune that. I find this especially useful when you get into the drives. Like, you know, if you find that like there's a lot of top end coming out of the fuzz, for instance, if it's like too aggressive or in your face, if you want to dial that back to get the old school sort of like woolly sound, you could totally do that. If you use the variable low pass filter and just crank that Soulja Boy all the way down, I like to like hit it to right about like 1.7 kilohertz or so, and you'll find a nice warm woolly sound, which I'll definitely demonstrate in just a little bit here. But you don't have to do that. You know, you could always sculpt it in other places, but this is a really good starting point if you find that the sound is a little bit too aggressive for your liking, which personally I like the old school fuzzes and stuff like that, old school drives, and they weren't necessarily very like top heavy, which is really cool. Now the variable feedback filter, this is especially cool. So let's say that you're on a stage one night and you notice that like a specific note is ringing out and it's kind of annoying and it's getting a lot of feedback based off of your EQ settings, but it wasn't doing that the night before. So the best thing to do is to like isolate that note, kind of like the way that you would do with isolating mid-range frequencies. Isolate that note, find out which one is causing all the feedback, like all the annoying like snares rattling and stuff like that, and then the engineers are like, what the hell is going on? It didn't sound like this last night. Well, find that note and you can engage it by turning this knob here, and you can actually reduce by up to 12 decibels down, so it's not coming out so much. So it's really just that one note. You don't have to, you know, cut it out so much, and you'll hear a nice balance to the sound for sure. So let's say in that scenario it's A2 and you're hitting that note and it's just like, it sounds like butt. Let's turn it down a little bit in there until you find like the really good spot. And then let's say the next night, man, all of a sudden it's G sharp, you know, G sharp 2 is doing the same thing. Well, you can do the exact same thing, or you can just turn the variable feedback filter off. It's up to you, no big deal. So the next screen we've got here is our variable ratio compressor. I love the compressor that we have, and I like to think of it as like basically the more you throw into it, the more compressed the sound gets, the higher the ratio essentially. So if you got the compressor jacked up to 15, that's going to be the highest ratio. You can always like, you know, dial this back and then just kind of mess around and find the good balance between that and the makeup gain here next to it, and of course you want to turn that sucker on. Now the cool thing is we've got two different types of compression. We've got serial and we've got parallel. Serial is going to be 100% of the signal is going to be compressed. Parallel is going to be 50% of the signals compressed. Well, how is that going to be useful to you? Like in what scenario is that going to be useful? Let's say that you're playing like a thumpy warm bass and you want to like really kind of like make your quiets a little louder and your louder's a little bit quiet. You're not playing super aggressively, you're just sort of doing like some warm thumpy playing. Good to have 100% compression on that one. You don't have to, but that's a really good place to start. Then let's say you switch songs and you're doing a lot more slap sound. and you want some of those, like some of that thump to come through, but not like, you know, overpower everybody, that would be a good opportunity to put on the parallel mode and have 50% of the signal compressed. And then moving on, this is one of my favorite parts of the Super Pre, the drives. So first thing what I want to do is turn that knob right there to turn the drive on, and then you notice you've got 3 different types. You've got overdrive, distortion, and fuzz, the amount of drive, and the amount of volume. Now once you start navigating this guy, you're going to notice that all of the previous menus that I showed you are really going to affect the outcome of the drive. And so it's really good to have a good, like, clean, you know, flat sound most of the time. You don't have to do it that way. You just really want to find what sounds good to your ears based on where you like to pick, what type of instrument that you're playing, how aggressive you're going to be, you know, what kind of strings you're using, what kind of room it is, what kind of song it is. It's all up to you. Think of this as like this tool in general as like your spice shelf. You know, you want to like put a little bit of flavors. Jim likes to use cooking analogies. I do too because I'm a big fat guy. But anyway, think of this as your spice rack, and you can put little different flavors on there. So for this purpose, I'm going to show you really quickly the different sounds. Everything is 100% blended in. I'm going to have the drive turned up to 15. I'm going to have the volume up as well. There's your fuzz. There's your fuzz. Let's go to distortion. Notice how the fuzz and distortion have a similar sort of sound. It's kind of square wavy and stuff like that, so we can really sculpt different clipping you know, capabilities there. And then of course we've got the overdrive. Nice and woolly. I mean, I love that really woolly sound personally. So yeah, so you'll notice, like, let's go back to the fuzz, and as I was saying earlier, let's cycle over to the low pass filter, and let's say that, you know, like, okay, we want to take a little bit of that bite off, but as I was saying earlier, it's all the way up to 10 kilohertz as a default. So let's turn this knob down. I'm turning it down to 1.7 kilohertz because that's the frequency I found that I like a lot. Like all the way to the tippy top, 9.9. Let's say, oh no, there's too much bottom end. We gotta like let's let some of the highs come out. Let's let some of the highs come out. Well, let's move over to our crossover. The crossover default is at 100 or 150 hertz, depending on which firmware that you've got. I, you know, find that, like, okay, it's pretty woolly. If you want to tighten it up, I would start somewhere around 500 hertz. Maybe up to 750 hertz. Nice big woolly sound, which is kind of awesome. The crossover adjustment determines where the clean low pass part of your signal ends and the drive high pass begins, and it creates band pass going into the drive circuit. So if the crossover is set at 250 hertz and the DLPF is set at 1.5 kilohertz, you're going to get a bandwidth of 250 hertz to 1.5 kilohertz going into the drive circuit. Pretty badass. And then, of course, don't forget, on this screen you can actually blend. You know, sometimes people like to have a bit of their clean blend in the signal. You know, again, 0% is going to be completely clean, 100% is going to be completely distorted or driven, and you know, you can find a good balance for you based off of your sounds. Of course, if you want to fine tune it even more, you've got a 4-band EQ to mess with, and each one of those bands is going to have plus 12 D or minus 18 dB based off of this specific firmware. And yeah, so like, let's say it's nice and huge, or if you want like, I like a little bit more bottom end myself, so I'll move that up. Nice and huge and sweaty. Let's say maybe a little bit of low mids. Let's reduce some of the high mids and boost some of the top end just a little bit. And that's my sound right there. Okay, so we like all of the way that that sounds. We want to save this guy. Well, then of course, what are we going to do? We're going to go to the banking screen right here, and we're going to change what it says. Let's call this one fuzz. Now remember, I was playing off of the main right there, so we're going to call this fuzz. Now we saved our main scene to bank A1. So let's save this to bank A2. We press and hold, blobbity bloop, bank A2 is loaded, and look, you push 1, you're on bank A, which we named main. You push 2, boom, pow, surprise, brand new flavor in your eyes. We've got fuzz on A2. Pretty straightforward. So that's all the top menu settings. Pretty straightforward, a lot of different options right there. But let's say you want to take it even a step further. Let's say, it would be really nice if the bass knob went down to 60 hertz as opposed to wherever it's set currently, or maybe even to 70 hertz. Let's say you wanted a more, like you wanted a little bit more mids, a little bit slightly higher mids in your low mid register, maybe a little bit even higher in your high mid register, and maybe you want like super crystal clear up to 910K. You can do that by accessing the deep menu settings. So there's a lot of different settings to choose from. We'll go menu by menu and show what each one does. So how do we access the deep menu settings? Really simple. Press and hold the program button, and then you'll notice after a few seconds it switches to instrument level. So you've got two options, and by cycling through, by rotating the memory 1 knob, you'll see you have low output and high output. I would say high output is going to be a good starting point because a lot of your basses, some of them are going to be active, some of them are going to be passive and stuff. This has a nice little dB cut, so it doesn't overload the unit itself or whatever it's coming out of. On the next menu, you've got your frequency band, and you'll notice, oh cool, we've got it set to 60, but we want even deeper sounds. Let's go down to 45. And then we want to change the low mids. I like to keep it at 250. Let's say the high mids, you want up to like, 1 or 2K. Actually, let's move that to like 1.2K. And then we want the treble to be even higher up here. Well, that's awesome, but like, what does exactly that mean? What if the Q is set to like a specific notch and you're just boosting and cutting based on those specific frequencies? Well, look, on the next page right here, you've got your Q, and you'll notice that everything is set to wide. So if you're looking at each frequency band on like your EQ curve, each one's going to have like a nice wide range. So as you move up the bass, you're not only moving your center frequency of like 45 in this case, you're moving some of the frequencies around it because it's kind of arced like that. But let's say you want a little bit more refinement on the low end, you just turn the first knob. You'll see that there is a medium and there's also a narrow. On the low mids, you've got wide, medium, narrow, and notched. Sometimes you like to notch specific EQ points because if you're using this unit for drives, you'll find that especially helpful. Personally, I like the 250 range, and like we default everything to a wide Q just because you're gonna find a good amount of effectiveness with that. But like if your ears want specific frequencies cut out, especially in the mid range, you have this notch setting here. I like to cut out 500 hertz myself. I don't know why, that frequency just kind of just bugs me, so I just notch that out myself. So what I would do in that case is set this to notch, go to the previous menu. I would set my high mids to like 0.5K, just because that goes in intervals of 100 hertz each one. So, for now, I'm going to leave this on wide as I kind of like bust through everything. Then next, we've got the bright filter adjust. So one of the special buttons right here, if you push down on this, the bright filter will engage, and you can actually set how loud, how much of that frequency you want to come out. And also, by adjusting the first knob, where you want that to set. So we can go all the way up to 10 kilohertz and all the way down to 2 kilohertz. So if you want to add a little bit of top end sparkle, or if you want to add like super top end sparkle, you have the ability to do that, which is awesome. On the next menu, you've got post DI pre-profile. The pre-profile will not include the loaded speaker file in the post DI signal path. And the post profile, obviously, will include the loaded speaker file in the post DI signal path. Next we have this menu is going to allow you to adjust and save the overall volume of a particular scene relative to the baseline volume. So it's going to allow you to have some scenes move forward in the mix, like if you need to solo or maybe compensate for an overly driven sound. And then that brings us to the output level adjustment. This is going to be a global setting. It basically helps you adjust the output from the master volume control to best match the output connected to the amp's input sensitivity. Then you got the effects loop on and off. It's going to be part of a scene save. Selecting an on means it's included in the signal path, and off means it's not in the signal path. Pretty straightforward. So this next menu here, we've got the impedance select. You've got it set to 1 meg. That's going to be the impedance of most electric basses. But if, let's say, you're using something with a piezo or a piezo or however the hell you pronounce it, pickup, piezo pickup, you can adjust that by switching it to 10 megs. I'm going to keep it on 1 because we're using, just a conventional electric bass. This is a Sandberg Florence bass, by the way. Next menu. Up next, we've got the profile select. Remember the pre and post profile in the post DI setting? Well, this is the profile we're talking about. It's speaker profiles that come from Bergantino.com. You could download specific speaker profiles that we've uploaded on there, throw it on your Super Pre with a thumb drive, and then have a dedicated profile memory location that you want to store it in for a future recall. It's pretty sweet. So, on the next screen, you'll see Profile Select. You see that there's none. If you rotate, you'll see that I've got the NXT 212 loaded on there. Well, let's say I want to have a different sound. You go to the next screen, you pop in your trusty thumb drive, which I've got conveniently loaded in right now, and you'll see that there's a few that are on there that I've got saved. I got the the NV610T, the NXT 322, and then the NXT 212. So if I want to change it up, all I got to do is just boop, press the button there, and it's automatically saved as another speaker profile. And again, you can download those speaker profiles on Bergantino's website. So next we got the main phase. This is essentially allows you to reverse the phase of the Super Pre's main line input, and it just helps reduce any sort of feedback that you get in the room. So all you got to do is rotate that to reverse if you notice that is giving you problems. Otherwise, keep it as normal. That's where the factory default is on there. Okay, so the next one, you're going to have your tuner. You can select which kind of instrument with the memory 2 knob, guitar or bass. We're using bass, we'll keep that on there. Now, most people are going to use a 440, but if you're a bunch of weirdos who want to align your chakras or whatever, I'm just kidding, you can set that. I know 432 is a really popular frequency to tune to, but we have it set standard at A440, and you can of course, with the bright knob on the end there, you can toggle whether it's enabled or not whenever you engage the mute. There's no point really in turning it off. Personally, just keep it on because you have an extra tuner on your board, which is kind of sweet. So the next menu setting, we've got the scene USB import. Let's say a friend of yours creates a really awesome fuzz and you're like, oh man, I want you to hear this fuzz. It sounded really awesome with my P-Bass. I think you're really gonna like it. Just like on your profile, you would want to save on your thumb drive, you load it into the USB port here, the menu will change, and then blibbity blobbity bloop, you've got the scene saved on there, and you can pick which bank that it goes into, which is really cool. Next one, scene export. Same thing, but in reverse. Let's say you're the one who has a really cool fuzz and you want to get it over to your friend. So in this case, what you would do is you'd stick in your thumb drive again. It's going to notice the thumb drive on there, and then you can select A1 or A1 with main or A2 with fuzz. You click it, boom, it's done. Pretty easy. And now you remove this boy. You got yourself a scene that you can send over to your friend. You just load on your computer, email, whatever the heck you want to do. However you want to get it to them. You can mail this. You can send it via carrier pigeon if you want to. It's your choice. I don't know if it's going to be effective though. And then, last but not least, we've got the factory reset. If you want to undo everything that you did and just wipe it all clean and start from scratch, what you would do is you would set 1 with the first memory knob to 1. You set the code to 1, 2, 3, 4 basically, like that. And if you want to wipe the slate clean, you push in one of those buttons and then it undoes everything. And I'm not going to do that because I quite like the fuzz sound that we had there, so I'm just going to skip that. So if you want to exit this deep menu pretty quickly, what you'll notice is that after about 30 seconds or so, it's going to go right back to the top layer menu and everything. If you want to get out of here faster and hear like what all of the results of your changes were, you just press the mute button twice, and boom, pow, surprise again, you're at the top layer menu. So that's it for today. If you've got any questions, load them down in the comments, or you can message us directly. We'd be happy to answer those. Keep an eye on our website too, because we're gonna have different profiles loaded on there for like different speaker kind of sounds. We're gonna have different scenes on there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thanks again.